To add new visuals, we will first create a new page. You know how this works, so let's click this plus symbol. And here I want to add two specific visuals named Treemaps. Treemaps, like this, and Tables, right? We will see what these visuals look like in a few seconds. The first thing I want to have in here though is again our slicer to select different years. Now we could of course recreate the slicer, we know how this works, or we just go back to the overview because we have our perfectly formatted and perfectly working slicer already. Therefore, if you right click onto it, you can go to this copy menu and then select copy visual. If you then go to the new page and now press paste here, then the visual gets positioned at exactly the same position here. And here I get a warning or a question to be more precise, if I want to keep the visuals in sync. For the moment, we'll skip this option, and so we'll click onto don't sync here because I want to dive a bit deeper into syncing visuals or syncing slicers in the next lecture. So for the moment, please select don't sync here. So here we have our slicer, we know how it works. And now I would like to add another slicer actually. And now I want to create a new one, so we'll go onto the slicer. And now, yeah, I want to have the vertical one, so let's maybe make it a bit smaller and increase its height a bit. And in this slicer, I would like to have our regions, so that we can select different regions in the end in our visuals. So we go to the dim region table, and now take our region name, not the hierarchy here, but the actual region name field, and drag it as a field. No, it's too big, so let's maybe decrease it. And yeah, so here we can select different regions then. You know how this works. Well, we of course need also a visual where we can apply these options. And for this, I want to use a so-called tree map. So let's unselect the slicer. And you can find the tree map right here. This nice looking visual. So let's select it. And it will be a bigger one. So let's drag it right here maybe. Like this. And like that. As always, format it as you want in the end. You know, I'm just giving you some general guidelines here, but feel free to tailor this. And in the tree map, I want to visualize our population again for specific countries. So this means we need to go to our visualizations column here. And first we need the value. Well, the value, as always, is our population basically. But now for the different countries, we don't need a legend or something like this from other visuals. Here we use the details part. With details, we can go to the dim region table once again, and here take our countries and add it as details. And as you can see, maybe it's even still too small a bit. Let's maybe increase the size. Yeah, I think it's okay like this. So now we have our different countries in here, and what you can immediately see is we have the population by country at the moment for the Asian region, because we selected Asia right here. So if I would select Europe, this would change, and this would not look good, by the way, so let's maybe put it right there. So what we can see here is, again, we have a slicer which has an impact onto the way our information is displayed in the visual. What's more interesting here, though, is that if I now select our slicer up here with the years, for example, 1972, then this also changes our data. Because we are not only allowed to create a single slicer, we can also create multiple slicers on our page, which then both together have an impact onto a single or multiple specific visuals. And I have to repeat this. This is all due to the fact that right here in our format menu, we have the interactions enabled. With these interactions enabled, we make sure that interactions on this slicer have an impact onto the other visuals. So this means if I would unselect this interaction right here, this wouldn't have an impact. Why is this the case? Well, because this slicer now has an impact onto this visual. And if I select this slicer has an impact onto our tree map too. So this means we could unselect this filtering option here, and this wouldn't change a thing. So we still would be able to filter for different years and for the specific regions. Therefore, make sure if you create these combined filtering menus here, or these combined slicers here, that you check the interactions menu to see or how these slicers should interact with the different visuals and the information that you have in your report page. However, I'm not totally happy with what we have right here. I would like to add another slicer now, but this slicer shouldn't have an impact onto this visual, but onto another visual. Let's therefore again create another slicer, or let's actually, copy this one and paste it here. Not right here, but over there. This position, yeah, think this is fine. However, we'll see if it's enough space. And this slicer shouldn't display the region name, but it should display our different age categories that we created. So basically this option here. So let's drag it right here. Not working because, as you know, the slicer can only contain one single field. Therefore, we have to delete this field and now drag and drop the field into this area. So now we got the slicer for our different age categories. Let's make sure we can read this. And now I would like to create a so-called table. A table, as the name indicates, is, well, just a plain table, so no, or not a really fancy visual. However, heavily used in Power BI in many projects and also very helpful. And to create the table, you go to this symbol right here and now click the table. Now we don't want it over here. I maybe want to have it, let's say, down there a bit. Let's see what this looks like in the end. And in this table, I now want to have our region name as the first value that should be displayed. So let's take the region name here and add it as the value. Yep, nice. Maybe let's unselect this for the moment to have all our regions here. And let's now again select our table. And now the second option I want to have is our age categories. So let's take these and drag it right here. And as you can see, the table allows us to store multiple fields in our values area. And finally, I again want to have our population. So let's also add this third field right here. We can also increase our column width a bit, like this and like that. Oh, maybe that was too much. Let's decrease the width a bit. Yeah, something like this. Well, and what we get in the end now are values for different regions and age categories for the population. And if we would now select a specific region, for example, let's say we take Europe here, and then you would take the adults. Then we get a single value for the adults for the year 1975 in Europe. Very important here. I told you this in the last lecture. If we, well, select our table here and go to the visualizations column, and here we can again check our default summarization in the population field. So in case you have different results here, for example, well, this one. So you get plenty of values for each single entry we have for the Europe adults categories in the end, then make sure to change the default summarization back to some right here, because depending on the version you're using and depending on how you work on a project, this can be selected differently. So make sure to adjust this, and therefore I showed you this default summarization option basically in the previous lecture already. I'm still not totally happy though, because at the moment, if I click right here, you see this age category has an impact onto the tree map, and I actually don't want this. I just want to make sure that the year slicer and the region name has an impact onto the tree map, and then the year, region name, and age category should have an impact onto our table here, but the age category slicer shouldn't have an impact onto the tree map at the same time. For this, you learned how this works. You select the age category slicer, go to format, edit interactions is, selected now. Sorry, it was selected already. And now you simply unselect the filtering option for the tree map. Now, if we unselect edit interactions, change the year, it changes. You can see it in the tree map, and it changes also in our table here. But if I change the category, you see the tree map remains unchanged, but our table changes. And for the region name, if I change it to Asia, both our tree map and the table are changing the values. I want to go back to the default values though to show all values here to make this look a bit more fancy. You can of course still improve the looks of this a bit if you want to, but I think this doesn't look too bad at the moment. However, there was this warning thing when we created that slicer. You remember, if I create another page, maybe called slicer, and if I take an existing slicer, so right click onto it, copy visual, and then paste it right here, we get this warning. Now let's explore the sync visuals option as a next step.